terrorists who attacked America on September 11th managed to slip under the radar of that country's vaunted security forces. But they did leave behind an electronic trail of data that recorded virtually every step they took.
The FBI, within a day or two, knew everybody's name, where they trained, where they stayed, what they did, what they bought. The data was there. It's not lack of data, it's lack of interpretation.
Almost every one of our daily transactions leaves an electronic trail. How much of this information is held in some government intelligence agency's databases remains a secret. What we do know is that an enormous amount rests in the hands of privately held corporations.
Every time you go to a bank and you take out money, a transaction record is being created. Every time you make a telephone call, a transaction record is being created. Every time you travel through a border, a transaction record is being created. And because of the digital age, these transactions are stored. These transactions can be linked. And so if we got all these transactions together, you would have an alarmingly detailed profile of an individual.
Long before September 11th, a secret profiling system was in place around a number of airports. Passengers on American carriers were to be pre-cleared by something known as CAPS, or Computer Assisted Passenger Pre-Screening System.
In 1997, they came up with a proposal for CAPS. It is a system where when somebody purchases an airline ticket, you keep track of how they purchased that airline ticket. Did they pay cash? Did they pay credit? What other means of payment did they use? Did they rent a car before getting to the airport, or once leaving the airport? Did they do so use cash or not? What was their address for booking this ticket? So on and so forth. So to create a profile on every single passenger to see if they were up to any suspicious activity.
Some of the things they flag on, whether you bought your ticket with a credit card or cash. Well, when you buy a ticket with cash, you flag a lot of elderly couples who don't use credit cards. You know, any one of these characteristics is going to get the wrong people. And the notion that a computer can find the bad guys fails, because the bad guys are smarter than computers.
And sometimes, even if they're not that smart. In mid-December 2001 at Charles de Gaulle Airport, a profiling system was in operation when the now infamous shoe bomber set off alarms.
We saw Richard Reed be plucked out of line, and he was questioned for something like 8 hours. He missed his flight. He had to come back the next day. Did it stop him? No.
The original CAP system was designed to look for terrorists planting luggage bombs on planes, not for terrorists turning fuel-laden planes into bombs.
Since September the 11th, we have heard of proposals for CAPS 2. That is version 2 of CAPS, where even more information will be collected on travelers. This information will be compared with credit agency bureau information.
The top-secret CAPS 2 system is currently in development. Touted as making the present system look technologically primitive, CAPS 2 will tap into a multitude of public and private databases to greatly enhance the ability to profile every passenger.
You begin with passenger ticket transaction information. You match that database against INS, FBI watch list, fraud watch lists. And you match also with publicly available databases that allow you to do this passenger risk assessment.
In theory, CAPS 2 would take all those databases and spit out the name of a potential threat.
What if a college student who doesn't have a job, no visible means of support, had a credit card issued yesterday for the first time, bought 6 first-class tickets on 3 different flights from 3 different airports going to the same destination? A neural network would simply look at that transaction and say, that is an abnormal transaction. It's never happened before. We need to identify it.
One of the technologies being proposed to accomplish this is through something called computer-driven neural networks. Essentially, computers programmed to emulate the human mind with the capacity to learn, create, and discover all without the help of any humans. The more information it is fed, the better it learns.
I believe that neural network technology, a technology that can give us a system that can analyze every ticket transaction on every flight, on every airline, into, out of, within any country, making it virtually impossible for a terrorist ever to board an airplane again, anywhere. That's what you get.
While security agencies are waiting for CAPS 2, there's a profiling technology busy working away in the gaming capital of the world. Spotting the bad guys, the cheats, and the cons has been part of the Vegas scene since the days of Bugsy Siegel. But recently, the surveillance blanket of eye-in-the-sky cameras is being supplemented with something called fuzzy logic computer programs, with such unthreatening names as NORA.
NORA stands for Non-Obvious Relationship Awareness. And what NORA does is designed to sift through tens, hundreds, or thousands of different data sources that would otherwise be trapped in separate islands. And when you pool all that information together, what NORA does is finds out, detects, or alerts the user to both the obvious and the non-obvious relationships between people and or organizations.
What NORA does is suck up millions of personal data bits from a vast variety of private and public databases and spits out what would otherwise be unknown connections, and does it in a matter of seconds.
If somebody checks into the hotel, they show up to get a line of credit with the cage. So they're standing there before you, giving you $100,000 and saying they also would like a line of credit on top of that. That individual's entered into their casino management system. Within 3 seconds, their name, their address, their passport number if they're a foreigner, their driver's license, their date of birth, and other information that's collected on a credit application instantly travels through the wires behind the scenes, hits the NORA database, and NORA in a second or two tells them that this is the same person that's on the bad guy list before you even finish getting the credit card imprint. One of the more advanced capabilities that NORA has is what we call degrees of separation. And that will tell you that the DEA agent's college roommate's ex-wife's current husband is the drug lord.
But the FBI was not looking for drug lords when their agents came to visit Jeff Jonas just after September 11th.
Following September 11th, NORA was used to fuse FBI watch list data with corporate America data, sifting through millions and millions of records. And leads were generated that were of immediate import to national law enforcement.
Funding for further development of NORA technology is now coming from the CIA, with the expectation that this technology will be used to pluck out terrorists hidden among the general population.
Allahu Akbar.
After September 11th, one group of the population has become a particular target for anger and suspicion.
I was shocked because such a drastic thing occurred in New York City. Shock and a little bit of worry because I knew that it was going to come back to haunt the Muslim communities around North America, if not around the world. And I knew that we'd all be labeled terrorists because we were already called terrorists.
The day after the Canada Loves New York rally, Shadi Sakur and his buddies from Montreal and Ottawa decided it might be a good time to visit New York City.
Obviously, we knew something was going to happen once we got to the border. We knew that we would be pulled over. We knew that they would ask us maybe, some questions. They'd drill us a bit. We elected that everybody would be calm, that the driver would communicate with the officer at the border, and then that if they asked us an individual question, we answer politely, truthfully. Everything would be fine.
So we arrived at the border at 6 a.m. and he was curt. He wasn't rude, the officer. He asked us for our ID. We presented it to him. I think a couple of us didn't have as many ID as he would like. And then he asked again, where are you guys going? And we said, honestly, we're going to New York. We're visiting a friend. And we were thinking we may even go by and check out Ground Zero. He said, okay, pull over.
They expected that they would undergo close scrutiny by American officials. Most were bearded, they were young, and all were Muslim, and except for being Canadian-born citizens, they seemed to fit the profile the Americans had of terrorists. What they didn't expect is what happened to them next.
So about 8:45, 10 of those custom cars come running, storming towards us and scream, "Oh, both of you, all of you against the wall, put your arms against the wall." And they grabbed us, threw us against the wall, took out everything from our pockets. While one was, so each of us had two guys, so we're five, right? Each of us had two guys. One guy was frisking us, doing a full body search, a very aggressive body search, but one was taking everything away from us and had his hand on the gun in case we would have done something.
You know, grab our private parts, do things to us that we were just in total shock, all in a span of about 30 seconds while they're checking us. That was enough. That was enough physical intimidation for us to just, you know, to be intimidated, and we were.
Then I see some U.S. Marshals come in. Yeah, I see some FBI special agents come in. And then I see some guys in plain clothing, which come in, and they all go in a room and they're talking, and then you hear comments like, if I had my way, I'd lock these guys up for like 6 months, then I'd start sending them. And you hear comments like this, and you're getting afraid.
They photographed us as if we were criminals. They fingerprinted us. And I remember the marshal telling me, I asked him, "Are we under arrest?" "No." "Did we commit any crime?" "No." Then I don't want to keep asking them so that they may, you know, get angry and keep us there longer. But my basic next question is, why are you doing this? Why are we being fingerprinted if there's no charge?
Then about an hour later, these guys come in with French accents, and some with French, some with regular Anglophone accents, whom I later find out are RCMP. And I was so happy to see the RCMP. I felt like saying, "Thanks for coming. Are you going to take us back? Are we in good hands? Are we going back home? We didn't do anything. Did you, you know?" They come in. They didn't even look at us. They looked at us like we were guilty also. Went into a room, came back out 45 minutes later, and left. We were hung out to dry. Nobody cared.
After 15 hours, they were released and sent back to the Canadian side, where they were interrogated for another 2 hours by Canadian officials. Two weeks later, the RCMP contacted each of them to come in for further interrogation.
What ended up happening was we got a backlash from our own community. Everybody wanted to have nothing to do with us. It's like we were hot coal. They said that these guys are tainted, these guys are now guilty or the usual suspects. We do not want to be guilty by association. So we were dropped. Again, left hung out to dry. First by RCMP and then by our own community. Allahu Akbar.
Information on foreign nationals can be held in American customs and immigration databases forever. Often without knowing why or how they got on the list, people are permanently marked as suspects, unable to ever clear their name.